I want to say hello to my loyal supporters, my viewers. Today, as I explained, we in the process to where we getting to learn the candidates, okay? And we will be getting started. I have a guest with me today who will be running for the prosecutor, excuse me, the prosecutor attorney's office. That's the job that was held by initially Mr. Scott Ellerton. So if you all sit tight, and I will be back and we will get this show started. Okay? So sit tight. Again, we're going to be talking some legal stuff today. Issues as the court uh, coming to the court. There's so many different issues that we can discuss, but there's not going to be enough time today. However, I am glad to have my guests on today. But before I get started, I just want to let everybody know. Let me go up here and find it. We do have early voting taking place. Starting I want to say, where is it? Early voting is May 9th through the 23rd. May 9th through the 23rd. Okay, that is for the early voting. All right, and of course, the election day for the primaries will be May the 24th. So govern yourself to those dates. Again, early voting, those are your dates, May 9th through May the 23rd. And of course, election day for the primary will be May 24th, 2022. Okay? So that is a little quick announcement for today. Of course, we're going to be talking about many issues today. I think we have someone who's well qualified. This attorney will bring her on, and she will go ahead and just let you know exactly, you know, who is she. I think there was one person this morning who indicated to me that they wanted to hear Mrs. If she don't mind, I'd just like to stay with her first name, Attorney Sonia. I tell you, my tongue get cross up when I try to mention that last name. To no offense, though, Miss Sonia. But anyway, I always like to bring on the experts. You know, someone that can speak to you about our legal system. In this particular case, Mrs. Sonia, she's running for the prosecuting attorney's position, and uh, and we'll just let her tell you exactly, what that particular position entailed, the areas that she covered, and so forth. Okay, so without any further ado, I'm going to bring on my guest, Mrs. Sonia, and let her speak to you. How you doing, Miss Sonia?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Just hoping the storm hold up. This is the second broadcast I've done since I started back up, and just seemed like I can't get away from the bad weather.
It was
But
pretty bad here this morning, so
all right, but you heard my introduction of you. Well, not introduction, but just mentioning you as my guest. And so, uh, just before we get started into the QA, just give us a general overview of exactly who you are and exactly your areas of practice.
yeah. So I'm Sonia Fonticiella. I know my last name is a little bit funny, so I always tell everybody just call me Sonia, so that's fine. Um, and I grew up in Northeast Arkansas. I moved to Paragould when I was in second grade, and lived in Paragould, through high school, and I've always been here. Um, so I played volleyball and sports all through high school, and my parents would let me drive to Jonesboro all the time, and there was never really any fear. It seemed like back in those days there wasn't as much violent crime as we see now.
Tell
Um,
me.
the Just a little personal about me. I'm married. My husband and I are like the true Brady bunch. We have 6 kids, ranging from ages of 14 down to 7 months. Or yeah, she's about to be 8 months.
Okay.
So I'm going to have children in the juvenile system for 17 years, and that's part of what the prosecutor is in charge of. The prosecutors are in the juvenile court system too. So, as a mother, I'm very concerned about the violent crime and the rise of that in our area, and as a citizen as well. I've practiced law for over a decade, well over a decade, and have primarily practiced criminal law. What a lot of people don't know about me is that I started my love for criminal law in the prosecutor's office, and I worked as a law clerk for the city attorney's office in Fayetteville when I was in law school. And that prosecutor pulled me aside one day before I left my clerkship, and he said, "Hey, you have to practice criminal law." I was like, "Well, why?" And he said, "Well, I've seen you in there. You take these citizen complaints and you talk to the witnesses and the victims and this, that, and the other, and people listen. You listen, and people will tell you things that others usually will not. You know, it's very personal when you're dealing with victims of crime or even the defendants
I agree.
and themselves. It's very personal. So being able to sit down and listen and have people be comfortable enough to tell me their stories and share things that they don't even like to really share with themselves
Mhm.
is very valuable. So he taught me that and helped me hone in on that skill. And it's something that I pride myself on, and I encourage other people to try to practice is listening, because a lot of people doing a lot of talking, especially during politics. Um, so
So I guess to sum it up, you have a passion in what you do.
I do. I mean, nobody practices criminal law to get rich. So um, it's not I love my job, and I love practicing criminal law because of the people that are involved in it, and the stories, and um, the just being in touch with your community in that way is just
Mhm.
really important to me.
Well, of course, we going to be talking about some, some policing issues as well as safety. That is, I think I did take a peek at your platform in terms of, the, one of the things that you will be running on is being tough on crime.
Mhm.
Um, so, in running on that record, being tough on crime, excuse me. How do you strike a balance, being tough on crime and at the same time uh, being fair to those who come before you? For example, we have so much, you know, disparity, in the court system. We have some uh, uh, people that come before the court. They have issues, that it be mental issues or what have you. And so, uh, from the bench, I mean, do you plan to be open to those type things and be willing to listen in terms of trying to help the individual as opposed to, putting them in jail?
Sure. I mean, absolutely. My philosophy is, I don't think being tough on crime means being unfair, right?
Okay.
So, if you're dealing with violent crimes, you've got to prosecute those, and you've got to prosecute them to the
Mhm.
fullest, because we can't have people out here just like, shooting bullets out randomly in the streets, or raping and pillaging and whatever else you want to think of. Um, But when you say tough on crime, like, how, all of the candidates in this race are going to do that, right? That we're all going to go around and say tough on crime. How are you actually going to do that? What are your strategies for doing that? Well,
Mhm.
to me, part of the strategy in doing that is making sure that we're using our mental health courts, using our drug courts, using community resources to try to get the people that need help and want it
Mhm.
right away. I'll back you up 100%. If there's a program I can put you in and you're actually going to take it seriously and use it, good, let's do that. If there's a way to make that work. But if you come back and you're continuously repeat offending on, especially on violent crimes, then those are the type of cases that I don't think I would be very sympathetic.
Well, there is one area, in terms of from a attorney perspective, um, the public defender. I will say the public defender office, um, for the most part, they probably under budget, underpaid, don't have as many resources as a law firm, and so they have a pretty hectic case in terms of representation, which sometimes, um, you know the persons or people that they represent, they don't always dot the I's and cross the T. So from a court perspective, um, do the court have a tendency to step in when they sort of sense that there are some things that the attorney, uh, either doing or not doing? I mean, do the court have a tendency, or can they do that?
Well, I mean, the court, if you're talking about the judges,
Right.
yes, they can step in if they think there's something that's not right. But I've been on the public defender side, and they are overworked and under budget by way too many cases.
Mhm.
But I will say that there's some really good lawyers that work in the public defender's office that do their best every single day, and um, and need their help. The same thing on the prosecutor side. We've got some really good deputies in our district that we need to keep reorganizing and
Mhm.
streamlining things so that we can move cases along more quickly. Um, but yeah, the answer is yes. The court can step in if there's something that's going on that they see that's not correct, and make sure that that gets corrected if they see that. But the court's not involved in plea bargaining or anything like that. So,
Mhm.
and they're not permitted to be under the rules. So, it, hopefully, I think that answers your question. Maybe.
Oh, all means,
Yeah.
if I could go back, you had stated something that I'm sort of in agreement with you. When you have candidates, that's running, so often they use that term, that I'm going to be tough on crime. I'm going to be tough on crime. Exactly what is that? I mean, that's what I'm thinking as well. Does tough on crime just mean locking up a lot of folks? How do you do that? And so I'm glad you sort of kind of expound on that in terms of that's just a statement, if you will, good soundbite or what have you.
Hmm.
But exactly when you ask the particular candidate, I mean, what does that mean? For the most part, they don't have an answer or a clear answer that makes sense, and so I'm glad you sort of expound upon that. Uh, but in being tough on crime, I think it's fair to say, I think we all watch what happened to George Floyd. And it just was, it was just it was terrible. And so, which led not just this country, but other countries, it got their attention, and it led to calling for better police reform. I've always said one of the best ways to um, to consider police reform is to have uh, community and police relations. I mean, because if we're serious about solving crime, we have to remove that wall. Would you agree? To where the community and the police is coming together, working together in order to make our communities safer. So if you was, I don't know if you can advocate from the bench or implement from the bench, but if you were, let's just say, an advocate, you know, uh, uh, what are some things what are some things that you believe that you can suggest? Let me just say that will improve community and police relations.
Okay. Well, and just to clarify, I wouldn't be on the bench. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
All right.
I'd still be on the table. So, um, the I wouldn't be able to do anything as a judge, being the prosecuting attorney to help. But I think you bring up an important point, and that is, communication with law enforcement. And as I've been campaigning and having meetings with our law enforcement leaders, the one thing that is resounding theme is communication with the prosecuting attorney's office.
Hmm.
And I think that there's some good deputy prosecutors who are trying to help bridge the gap, so to speak,
Hmm.
of that lack of communication. But that's one thing that I think we need to start working on right away, um, and that I would start working on right away if elected. So I've given all of them my cell phone number. I'm like, yeah, I want to be an elected where you can call me on my cell phone at 3 in the morning if you need me, and I'll
Oh
answer.
wow.
So I've given all of the sheriffs and the local police departments, anybody else I've met with, they have my cell phone number. Um, but communication between the prosecuting attorney's office, law enforcement, and the community is vital.
Hmm.
You see on Facebook when somebody gets a charge or their bond is set, let's say, or somebody's convicted of a crime or pleads guilty to a crime, and it gets posted in the media. Well, then there's 10,000 comments within 5 minutes of oh, well, that was too harsh, or this was too,
Mhm.
small, or this, that, and the other, but there's no communication directly from anybody else on exactly why that happened. And sometimes there's good reason for that, right? Like sometimes we don't want to have like, a victim's family to relive things through grave detail in the media, but being able to communicate with, uh, being able to have that communication with the public, I think is important to the extent that you can do it without re-victimizing families and the victims. So, and the other thing that I think we need to, that I've enjoyed watching happen, and I think it's happening more. So, like you'll see, when a sheriff or police department has like a big drug bust, they'll
Mhm.
take a picture of it and they'll put it on their Facebook page
Mhm.
and say, "Oh, look at this," and that's good work, and they need to be showing the public what work they're doing. But then, some police departments and sheriffs are better than others at doing this. But I also like seeing when they do something good, like when they're out doing things in the community. Like, I went to
Right.
the Jonesboro Police Department had put on a color run for their DARE program. And they're real good about posting those things and making sure the community knows that they're
Mhm.
not just out there arresting people, but they're actually trying to interact. And I think there's some really good departments in our district that do that.
Mhm.
And I would encourage that to continue, and would encourage that from the prosecutor's office to make sure that we're accessible to everybody. It's
Mhm.
not just some, big office that somebody sits in. So,
Okay. Well, again, you sort of hitting it on both ends there. I like that. Not just showing themselves in terms of just doing their jobs, but just giving of themselves. Whether it's helping go out and be part of
mhm,
some little league, baseball team, softball, just volunteering time. Just being. I mean, that's what community services is all about. And so
mhm.
I'm glad you sort of expound upon that as well. Now, the going back to as I indicated, we saw what happened with George Floyd. Now, uh, in the area of police reform, uh, the first question is that um, for an officer who has been involved in a police shooting, in this particular case, let's just say it was homicide. Um, First of all, would you hold, not saying convict before a trial, but I mean, would you be committed to holding this police officer accountable if there's a need that shows that he or she, if nothing else, have violated policy?
Sure. I mean, if somebody's violated policies and there's an incident, I mean, the George Floyd incident is just, I know it's happened before, but that was
Mhm.
the one that really gripped the nation, right? And that's the most clear cut example we have on video that people have really seen thousands, millions of times.
Mhm.
Um, but our Arkansas State Police does a really good job of investigating when those things happen, and they, those incidents get taken over by the Arkansas State Police. So there's an independent organization that's investigating them, and so I would look to them on their policies and how to handle those situations. But yes, if the Arkansas State Police in an investigation led to an unwarranted use of force that resulted in a crime, then I don't think any of us that are running for this position would disagree with prosecuting that.
Mhm.
Um, but I will say, like I'm a big supporter of the Arkansas State Police. I'm not a fan of the defund the police theory.
Mhm.
Um, I
Oh,
think
we
we
need the
need to,
police.
I think we need our police, and we need to pay them what they're due.
I agree.
We don't pay them enough. We ask them to be psychologists, social workers, medical professionals, policemen, and like mental health. I mean, you name it, we ask them to do that. And I think we ask too much of them. And and I'm not knocking anybody on what their positions are. That's just how I feel. I think we need to pay our police more.
Well, speaking of, you indicated that there were so many heads. Um, how do you feel about the police, um, the local police departments probably building some partnership with DHS, for those, they have a situation to where they have a person who may be known to have some mental issues.
Hmm.
Uh, so, I mean, how would you, if you had to voice your opinion or advocate or whatever? I mean, would that be something that uh, that you believe that will help the police department focus on hard crime or violent crime as opposed to, you know, spending their time? I mean, we can't let people speed, for example, I mean, but
Hmm.
speeding tickets and, traffic violations, things of that nature, or in this particular case, we're talking about someone who's suffering from mental illness. Uh, I will say that I think that that would be a good idea if they could build some type of partnership with DHS. I mean, I don't know where your thoughts is on that.
Sure. I mean, yes. I mean, I think that that's happening. I'm trying to remember which organization I was speaking to about it, but I think they ended up with some sort of grant for a mental health professional to be a part of their department. Um, and so I think there's a movement towards doing that,
Mhm.
and I would certainly encourage it because I mean, you can't be an expert at everything, right? I don't pretend to be an expert at everything. And if you're not seeking an expert in the needs that you have, then you're doing a disservice to yourself and your position. So, I'm the type of person that if I don't know the answer to something, I go out and find it, and I'll tell you I don't know the answer.
Mhm.
And I don't know the answer to that.
Mhm.
Um, to to completely change a policy where there's going to be interaction between DHS and the police. But if there's a way for that to happen and it to be useful, then I would definitely support that.
Okay, well, let's move away from police reform for a while. Let's move to let's talk about juvenile crime rate. Okay, I think you will agree that not just here locally in Blava, but I'm pretty sure in Jonesboro and Paragu and you know across the nation that we have a crisis, if you will.
Mhm.
It's not a problem; it's a crisis with our juveniles. I mean, they are committing adult crimes, but every now and then you will get a case to where it's kind of one of those middle line. It's not leaning too far to either side, but and you're sort of scratching your head. How do you uh, handle this case? Do you try this kid as a juvenile, transfer it to the juvenile court, or and we're talking murder. We're talking about a violent
Mhm.
crime. Uh, but do you go ahead and uh, try this kid as an adult? And so, what are your thoughts? How would you handle a case like that come before you to where you have a juvenile who's standing before you, and let's just say murder? I mean, how would you handle it in terms of the procedures? That is.
Yeah, I think our juvenile court system is set up for rehabilitation. That's its specific goal. Now, when you have older juveniles that are out committing very violent crimes, then I think there is sometimes the need to charge them as an adult. And unfortunately, I saw several of those while I was working in the public defender's office in Craighead County. Now, um, so I do think that there's a need sometimes for juveniles to be charged as adults. And
Okay.
but I'll tell you this. So I've thought about juvenile court a lot, and I'll be honest with you. Like I said, if I don't know the answer to something, I'll tell you that, and I'll go find
Mhm.
out. I am I've dealt mostly with adults in my career, and I'm not an expert on juvenile law. That's a totally different book. We have some really good deputy prosecutors who are that work in juvenile court that I would look to help me with making sure that court runs properly from the prosecutor side. But I'll also say, as a mother, I'm going to have a child that I have an 8-month old, so she's going to be for the next 17 and a half years subject to that juvenile court. I want to make sure it's run properly and and that the rehabilitative component of that is our primary focus. And I've talked to you about this, the school to prison pipeline and the individuals that are getting into prison that don't read. I would love if there is a way to do this to incorporate some kind of language processing disorder identification in the juvenile court system, especially with the younger juveniles that come in. And I'll tell you why I'm so passionate about that. We have 6 children. 4 of the 6, and we haven't been able to test the baby yet,
Mhm.
have dyslexia or some form of language processing disorder. All of them can read. All of them are doing fine, but that's because it was diagnosed early, and they have parents that have the ability and the privilege to get them the tutoring they need and make sure that the school's providing the services that they need.
Mhm.
And my children go to Greene County Tech, and we've been blessed to have really great teachers and really great services at Tech.
Well, congratulations.
So my 8-year-old, for example, he's in second grade, and because we did such early intervention for him, he's already reading on a fourth grade level. Um, so reading is so important to me. If we can somehow incorporate reading into the juvenile court system and identifying these kids, handing that information off to the schools so that they can, get in a proper IEP or 504 plan and keep track of that, then I really think over the long term, we will have a lot less crime in juvenile court. That's a huge long-term goal. That is not something that will happen overnight, but I've said this before, I am old enough to have the experience to do this
Mhm.
job, but I'm young enough to do it for a long time and do it well. And if I'm, privileged enough to be the prosecuting attorney, that is one thing that I will be working towards for years to come.
Well, I will. I will agree with you on reading. Reading is probably the most important subject, if you will, in the whole school curriculum. Because, I mean, let's face it, you know, if you can't read, you can't do math. If you can't
Mhm,
read, you can't do science, social studies, and so forth. And so,
mhm,
what's the old saying? Reading is the beginning of learning, and learning is
mhm,
the beginning of reading. So, I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. And just want to just close out on some of these juveniles, well, let's just say youth that go through the system. Uh, Now we're going to talk about the adduct as well.
mhm,
What is a good reentry program working them back into the school system? Because what is happening, and of course they did my son like that, is that when let's just say they go and stay 6 weeks or so to some juvenile detention center for whatever infractions that they committed. Now they finna be released, and there are school districts that uh, are not quick to accept those students
mhm.
back into the general population. And so, from the bench, I mean, how would you handle a case like that? Surely come before you to where you got a school district that is denying a parent from allowing their child uh, to, to re-enter the general public school
Mhm.
population. And so, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it depends on what the school is and what the crime is and, how they're getting integrated back into it. So, our deputy prosecutors, would have to have really good communication with the school district to make sure that whatever is needed for that school district to, um, accept them, right?
Mhm.
They have that information.
Right.
So I know that's a really kind of mushy answer, but I think it would depend on the specific case and what was required because
Mhm.
what I don't want to see are kids that are incarcerated for what may not be a extremely serious crime, right? Like, and I'm not talking about kids, with you asked about a child that had committed murder or rape or something like that. That's I'm separating those kids out,
Okay.
but somebody who's fighting or something like that and trying to reintegrate them into school, making sure that they have the resources they need to keep that student on task. I don't want people coming back in though, once a student gets in, a juvenile gets into the system,
Mhm.
if you don't try to fix it on the front end, their chances of coming back are so much higher. So, um, I don't know if that really specifically answers your question, but
Well, we're just
rehabilitation would
having
be key.
actually we're
Yeah.
just having conversations because I want to hear you talk, and I'm pretty sure I know that people may be at work at this hour, but of course I think they will tune in later, and
Sure.
uh, and hopefully something is said today that perhaps maybe will help them.
Mhm.
But just a few other questions because I know the time is well spent. Um, on the I asked you about the reentry for the youth, but also there seemed to be something lacking for his reentry for those adults. In some cases, when they're coming out of the criminal justice system, There are barriers, if you will, in terms of becoming gainfully employed.
Hmm.
In some cases, they don't qualify, for housing. And so those two things right there, especially employment, sort of, kind of box a person in. They got no way of providing for themselves in terms of not re-entering back into the prison population. And so, uh, what have you seen? I know you say you've been practicing for 10, what's that, a decade or more?
Yeah, it's 2009, so
Yeah. And
I've been
so,
practicing for about 13
can,
years.
so I'm pretty sure that you have seen this, and perhaps maybe your firm probably have represented some of these people. And so, uh, what can be done or what need to be done to try to help these people, whether it's becoming gainfully employed or school, learning some type of trade, so
Mhm.
they won't re-enter back into the prison population. And so, what can the court do, if anything?
Well, what the court can do is, and has been doing, this is a relatively new thing. They've done a couple. I know they did one in Osceola several months ago, and we did another one in West Memphis. Oh, I'd say about a month ago, where we do ceiling clinics, and that's a joint effort between the prosecuting attorney's office and the judges, and then volunteers. So I help volunteer at one of those events to fill out paperwork to have people's records sealed.
Oh,
And
okay.
so those clinics are really important. I mean, the one that I went to, it was supposed to be, I think, from like 8 a.m. to 1 o'clock, and like people didn't leave till 5 because there were so many individuals coming in to get their records sealed. And those things help you with employment. They help you with housing, help you with moving on with your life, and that's one thing that I think is really going to benefit our community, of our second judicial district, judges, and the prosecuting attorney's office. I know Keith Creston was a big part of doing that. He's the appointed prosecutor right now. I would love to continue that and do more of those, because it costs money to
Mhm.
hire a lawyer to do an expungement. And and I always recommend hiring a lawyer if you can do it, um, especially on the more complicated cases. But if you've got a relatively simple case, or even if it is complicated and you want to find out it is, go to those
Mhm.
sealing clinics. Sign up for that, because you can definitely get some good information, and or just get it all done, get your record sealed, because the judges are there, the prosecutors are there, there's legal aid and defense lawyers there that are helping everybody fill out paperwork and move things along. And the other thing that you get to do when you do that, which won't count for this election, but you can actually register to vote after you get all of those
Uh,
records sealed.
Right.
And that's really important to me, for
Very
people in
important.
Arkansas who do not know that you can still vote after you've had a felony if you get it sealed. There
Mm,
are ways to do that.
mhm.
And having people re-engage with their civic duty voting, um, and participating, even if you participating in juries and things like that. Man, we got to get people more involved in that. Um, and whether you vote for me or not, please register to vote. Just do it.
Yeah.
I hope you
Great.
will vote for me, but register, please, and do go vote.
And the last thing, of course, last question, and then I'm gonna let you close it out. Probably, tell a little bit more about why you're in this race. And there's always that uh, that incident or something that make you move to want to
Hmm.
run for a higher office. And so I'm gonna let you close out on that. But before I do, and we talked about police reform, and we talked about the mental uh, people with mental issues or what have you, and a few other the reentry program. Now, in terms of the telephone and well, let's talk bail. We're speaking of reform. Our bailing system, you know, is our bailing system really fair in terms of to the poor, to the very poor, placing certain bonds upon them, and then you get someone that's well off who has the money to put up their bail. And so, can our bailing system be reformed? And if so, uh, what can the court do to help in that process in terms of having a fair bailing system?
One thing that we don't see a lot of in the like 8.1 hearings, which is the bail hearing, bond hearings. is that, there's no lawyers in the room usually.
Yeah. Mhm.
So there's usually the judge and whoever brought the client in, and and there's reasons for that, and it's resources, right? Like, it's not that anybody's trying to do anything wrong per se, but it's just the way it's set up. So I don't know the answer to that. I really don't. I think that I agree with you. I think that there are some bonds that are too high for somebody who's low income to make it fair. But then I also agree that we do need to have some form of bail. And part of the reason on the state side you really want to have some form of bail is because you have bondsmen that can go pick somebody up. So it takes stress off of our police department that's already overburdened. But I come from I have a really strong federal defense background, and there's really no money bail in the Eastern District of Arkansas in federal court, but they also have so many more resources. So you have a
Mhm.
probation officer that you're assigned to if you are out on bond.
Mhm.
You're typically OR'd on conditions, and there's some very strict conditions sometimes. And so, I don't believe in there being no money bond or bail on the state side. I don't think that that's going to work here
How is the
because of
building
the
system
resources. But
from the federal compared to the state? You had indicated that you worked at,
yeah, yeah, I have a very extensive experience in federal court. So what happens in federal court is if you get brought in on a case, you go up in front of a magistrate judge, and the magistrate judge will decide. And it's very similar. The standards are similar from the state to the federal side. Is you have to have a bond that is uh, you have to weigh the factors that will be the least restrictive means to ensure the defendant's appearance at trial and the safety of the community, and safety of the community is always first, right? So you have to balance that. So how much on the state side, how much money is that going to take?
Mhm.
And what other conditions can you put on somebody? But on the federal side, you like I said, you get a probation officer that's assigned to you. Sometimes they'll put you into an inpatient drug rehab followed by chemical free living, and the government pays for all of it. They will help you with finding a job. They will help you with transportation. They will help you with all kinds of things. But we're talking about the federal side where all those resources are readily available. We don't have that on the state side.
Okay.
So it wouldn't work with the resources that we have on the state
I
side.
see. So we got our work cut out for us on the state
Yeah,
level.
but I think there's
Yeah.
some creative ways that we can, help. Like I don't,
Can
and
it
I
be
say
improved?
that,
I guess what I'm asking is, can it
yeah,
be improved?
I think it can be improved. But I'll say, if you've been charged with a violent crime and you have a violent criminal history, then, you know, I would advocate for a very high bond.
Yeah, of course, we got to
But
separate,
yeah, I mean, there's,
based on the severity of the
mhm,
offense.
yes.
Uh,
So I mean, that's a really complicated issue. I mean, it's that's a tough one to answer. Even that would probably take me like a whole hour by itself to really dive
yeah.
into.
Well, in terms of the
So
closing out on that jailing system, again, we're talking about the poor. Some have said how the criminal justice system, they get, you know, not really sort of get rich off the poor, but they sort of put the poor in a position to where they become poor. Whether you're talking bail bond, in this particular case, we're talking about telephone services. They contract out with these companies,
mhm.
or what have you, and you probably a call, say 5 minutes in a prison. You could probably easily spend $15-20 like that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I mean, um, what is it? I know when we buy gas, like what they call it, price gouging,
Mhm.
or what have you. Do you think that that's a little bit what's going on here I mean, it's just not the state courts. It's, I mean, right here in the county courts,
Yeah. You're
we
talking
have
about
a
the
problem
phone
with
in the
excessive
jails?
rates for telephone calls.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on which facility you're in, how that works. But um, I honestly don't know why the jails use whatever system they use. And I mean, I know that they're all recorded and they should be. Um, so I think that's, I wish I could answer that question, but I think that question would probably be more, you'd probably get a better answer from one of the individuals who run the jails in our district.
Mhm.
I'd be happy to go ask them about it because it's something that I've thought about before. Because I think it's important to have communication with family while you're incarcerated because I think it helps you when you re-enter
Right.
society. But so I don't know why it's so high. I haven't actually. I mean, I've thought about it, but I haven't specifically asked questions about it.
Yeah, I should have put all my questions on the screen for the audience, but I forgot. But this last question, we're gonna close out and let you close out on this.
Mhm.
It's a very, it's a very, it's a very touchy subject. Of course, you know the Supreme Court right now is weighing in uh, on a right of women that has been around for what was it, at least 50 years, I believe. And
Mhm.
so now the seem like the abortion rights, Roe versus Wade, that is what is referred to, seem like it's on the ropes now, and like it could become a thing of the past. And so, but there are certain states, I think Texas is one of them for sure. I believe there may be a few other states where they are passing legislation that will place penalties and jail time on those who are considering women, that is, considering aborting their pregnancy, and even jailing those who help in the process, driving them to the facility or what have you. And so, just closing out on that last question right there before I turn it over to you, speaking to the voters as to why you in this race, um, just the jail time in itself. I mean, should women be jailed for, um, making a decision about their personal body? I mean, a lot of people scratching their head about that. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if you will hear some cases like this here, but in the case that you do, how could you, how will you as a judge prepare for this case?
Well, you know, as a prosecutor, your job is to prosecute the laws of the land, right?
Mhm.
And our land being Arkansas. So, I would have to, prosecute pursuant to what the legislature puts into effect. And one thing that I think is important is always maintaining. I think how to answer this. So always staying out of getting your personal business out when you're prosecuting a case. Sometimes these things are personal. They're personal to the people that are involved in them, right? So you've got to be the one that steps back and says, okay, what does the law say, and why do I, how do I do this, right? How do I prosecute a case? So if the law of the land is that I have to prosecute people, um, whether I like it or not, as the prosecutor, that's my job.
Well, fair enough. Fair enough.
So
I appreciate you having the courage to at least weigh in on that question. I know I asked it of three candidates who's running for state representative, and of those three, I only heard from one. And so I thank you for for weighing in on this real hot topic.
yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I encourage everybody to talk to their legislators about it because they're the ones that are going to write the laws.
mhm.
So
Uh, I want to see do before I close out. I want to see if I have any questions over here. Like we got one lady. This was matter of fact, this was one of the people who was wanted to hear you.
mhm.
Um, and so I don't know if she have a question over here before I let you go. Let me see. She asked the question, just a question and answer period. Actually, this is an opportunity, Mrs. Sheila Runk. It's an opportunity for you to hear uh, Attorney Sonia for her to explain her platform. But do you have a question? Let me see. Uh, well, she made a. I don't know if this may be a statement. This is Mrs. Sheila Rump. She she actually wanted to hear you today. She was the one that actually responded to the post that I made. It
Yeah, I
said
saw that.
women should have a right to her own body. I don't believe in abortions, but in case I am raped, sorry, it's over. That was a statement from her. I think she got another one. Thanks for the show. Great. All candidates should appear on your show. Uh, and so she's just basically giving her opinion about how she feel about this very hot topic, abortion. And at the same time, she thanking you for, coming on where she can hear you, where she can be better informed when she go and cast her vote. And so hopefully something was said of you uh, where you done won over her vote. So hopefully that did happen. And um, before we close this show, I want to go ahead and give you the opportunity. If someone jump in later, have a question, I will go to the board. But meanwhile, uh, what make you different from these other candidates in terms of why you believe you're the better candidate? And you can just answer that with closing out for us.
Okay. You know, what a lot of people don't know about me is that I'm first generation American. My parents fled communism in Cuba to come to America, became naturalized citizen, and then I was
Mhm.
born here in Dallas, Texas. And
Well,
the
congratulations to you and your
oh,
family.
thank you. So my grandfather when he first came here had nothing. Like they
Well,
literally got
let me
off the
stop you
boat.
for a minute. How
Yeah.
do you feel about immigration? I mean, what are your thoughts on that
No,
immigration? I mean,
yeah, I mean, I believe in legal immigration. I think our immigration system, there could be reforms, but we just can't have people just flopping back and forth either. My family came here legally, and we're able to be naturalized, and we were blessed enough that the country allowed that for us. So it's a super complex topic because there's just so
fair
many
enough.
different factors at play. But I
Yeah.
say that to say, I understand the struggles of that, and I've through my family's hard work and their family values have learned how to appreciate our country, our constitution, all parts of it, and try to bring the office forward. So bring this office forward. So my career has been dedicated to criminal law, but I want to be able to give back to our community in a way that our country gave back to me.
Mhm.
I want to use the privileges that my parents worked hard to afford me to try to help others. And I'm really sick of hearing about people just shooting up in the streets, and I'm tired of my clients coming to me saying they're just going to get probation for holding somebody at gunpoint. I'm tired of them getting, not being scared. They're not fearful of consequences because there aren't as many consequences. And I believe in being a truth seeker and in being fair but firm.
Mhm.
So, I've said this, as a mother, I know when to be understanding, but I also know when enough is enough. And I think those skills make me different than anybody else in this race. I've got plenty of courtroom experience. I've got, thousands of hours sitting down and talking to defendants and understanding how their brains work. And I don't think either other candidate can say the same. Um, I've got extensive trial experience, managerial experience, and I like to be no nonsense and common sense, right? So I don't want to have, I don't beat around the bush as much as possible. As much as I can avoid beating around the bush, I do,
Right.
because I think being direct is much more efficient.
I agree.
Um, so, for those reasons, I believe I'm the best candidate in this race. I have honesty, ethics, and integrity, and those are all qualities that need to be brought to the office. And the other thing, I know my opponents have beat me up on being inexperienced. Well, I'm experienced. I have plenty of courtroom experience and managerial experience. And they say, "Oh, well, you're too young." And here's what I say to that: I'm not too young. I just have a very, very good hair colorist. So don't let them tell you I'm too young to do this job.
Well, I think we can look back from experience to where there's been so many cases to where young people shock the world. In my field, I used to be a boxer. Look at Mike Tyson; he shocked the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so, uh, young people, they're a champion in their own era, and I don't think we should count them out because of their youth,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of their age. And so, with your, I mean, just background, I just heard just a little bit of it, and you going through, you done practice on the federal level, the state level, and so I would say you pretty much exceed the qualifications. And speaking of,
Well, thank you.
you know, they're saying things about you're too young or whatever. We had a community meeting to where I think one of your opponents, the question was asked of him of the by the media. Uh, and so, what are your thoughts on uh, a judge? Well, not a judge, but an attorney who's seeking this position to become a judge. What are your thoughts? Not saying to throw mud, or whatever, but the media did ask that question of, I think there was some discrepancies with him, perhaps, I don't know, his client's money, or somehow become an issue for the for
Are you,
the
are you talking about Martin Lilly's ethics violation?
that's him exactly.
Yes.
I
I
think.
mean, yeah, he likes to equate that to a traffic ticket, and I find that offensive.
Oh yes, he
Um,
did.
and
He
I find that offensive. You don't lose $60,000 of your client's money, your orphan client's money.
Mhm.
I've never lost $60,000. I don't think anybody out here has that's
Well, in fact,
listening.
he did do that. We had a community meeting. He sort of minimized the uh, the issue in itself.
Mhm.
It's kind of like uh,
When you use an important
getting a
word,
parking ticket.
yeah, you use an important word, minimize. Anytime I have a client that's a defendant in criminal court, minimizing their conduct, guess what happens? They get a bigger hit, right? Because
I
if you're
can believe that.
minimizing your conduct, then that means that you're not accepting responsibility for your actions.
Well, do
And
you
if you're going
think?
to expect that of the people you want to expect the people you're prosecuting to not minimize their conduct when you're asking them to plead guilty to something, then you shouldn't do that yourself. Don't minimize it.
Well, I do know that they got certain laws on the book
So,
right now in terms of as it relates to money. Where a particular there been a breach of the what is it? Breach of the public's trust, if you will.
mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, with
and
Kate
and
Holiday was the most recent
yeah,
one, right?
and so should a candidate just on that, just a breach of the public trust, should a candidate be disqualified just on that in itself, or should they be given a slap on the wrist or whatever, and let bygones be bygones? I mean, what are your
Well,
thoughts from an attorney making that transition from an attorney to now you a sitting judge where you're hearing cases, although you have violated the ethical rules, or in this particular case, some may refer to it as breaking the law.
yeah, I
Uh,
mean, somebody asked me that, and I haven't. I try not to talk about my opponents in any negative way, but
yeah.
this just really rubbed me the wrong way last night, as he continuously equated it to a traffic ticket, and like I said, I find that offensive. So, as the prosecuting attorney, that is something that you would look at as felony theft,
Hmm.
and whether you paid it back or not doesn't matter. When somebody else steals something, even if they say, "Oh, wait, 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 you caught me, let me give it back," you still stole something.
Yeah.
And you still have a consequence, and you are then forced to pay it back. So, I mean, I think he's lucky that it worked out the way it did. Um, but I hope the voters take that into consideration as they go to vote and see if this is an individual that they want to allow to manage a budget of $1.8 million and run the largest law firm in Northeast Arkansas. So,
Okay. Well, I'm gonna let you close it out with just early voting is upon us, and so just let you speak to the voters in terms of asking of their vote, or if they want to help, what can they do, who do they contact, or what have you. So I just let you close out on that.
sure, like I said, I like to be no nonsense. I like to be direct. And as much as possible. It's a nonpartisan race, so I've tried to stay out of all the party politics and all that. And I feel like I've done so successfully, and that's because I also tend to be a rule follower, and I want to make sure that I'm following the nonpartisan rules. So, um, I would be honored to have all of your votes, everybody who's listening. I bring a quality to the office that I don't think any of my opponents have, and that is, being a mother and having small children. I have a very, very, very deep vested interest in making sure that my children are growing up in Northeast Arkansas in a safe environment. And that doesn't mean just my kids here in Greene County. I want your kids over in Osceola and Blytheville and all through Mississippi County to also have safe communities. Um, so, so I bring that perspective. And, I think most people have heard the saying, there's nothing more scary than a mama bear protecting her cubs.
Mhm.
All your kids are going to be my cubs. And no,
Yeah.
I think if you ask anybody I've ever represented, hey, what do you think about her being the prosecutor? I'm pretty sure they would all say, oh no, we don't want her to switch to the other side.
Okay.
Um, so, so I bring that to the table.
So they know
But
you can be tough when there's time to be tough.
well, I've made them cry. This is what I tell my clients, and I've said this before, and nobody cares until you care about what's happened to you. Nobody cares if you're hurting somebody else. Nobody cares, right? until you realize what traumas are are affecting you, you know, whatever childhood traumas you have, and not to say that they aren't real and they're not valid, they are, but until
Mhm.
you can turn that into the desire to better yourself and not continuously come back into criminal court, nobody cares, right?
Mhm.
If you're not changing yourself and not bettering yourself,
Agree.
if you don't care about yourself, nobody else is going to care about you. And that's why I say, you know, I know when to be compassionate and when to be understanding, but I also know when enough is enough. And and that's part of being a truth seeker. You know, part of being fair but firm. And I'd appreciate all of your votes. May 9th is early voting. May 24th is election day. Please
Exactly.
get out there and do it. Do not forget to vote.
As a matter of fact, Mrs. Sonia, Attorney Sonia, I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule and come sitting with me today and speaking to the voters, and hopefully something was said that you have won their vote. Again, here, this is what I'm looking for here. Early voting, May 9th through um, May 23rd. That is the early voting for the primaries. And of course, the election day is May the 24th for those of you who are listening and looking. Again, May 9th through the 23rd is early voting. And of course, election day will be May 24th, 2022. That's for the primaries. And I want to say, Attorney Sonia, it was great. And what's that old saying? And I think you will agree that the job of I think the job of an attorney is to do justice.
That's right.
Not about winning cases. It's about
That's right.
doing justice. And I'm sure you would agree with that.
Oh, I
Uh,
do. I
and
do.
this is my first time speaking with you. Pretty good judge of character. You do strike me as one that believe in doing justice.
Mhm.
And so, with that being said, I want to thank you again, and don't be a stranger. If anything I can do to help you throughout this election, primary or whatever, you need to get a message out or something that you need to, uh, just anything pertaining to getting out the vote. You have my information, and don't be slow or hesitant about reaching out to me. Look like two people just tuned in. I just want to see who they are. I always
Sure.
like to make sure don't nobody I leave anyone out. It say
Well,
it
and I'll
say
come
what
back and look at comments and try to answer them if
yeah,
somebody
she
asks
well
them
you can
later.
and then you can pretty much touch base on that. Yes, the hour's been spent. I think you had already alluded to, regardless of what party, you're about partisan, doing the right thing. Working in a excuse me, partisan, working in a bipartisan manner is what I'm trying to say,
Hmm.
regardless of which party one is from. And so I'm pretty sure you can reach out to her. Uh, and she said she liked that. As we closed out on it, it's about doing justice, as opposed to
Yeah.
winning cases. And so she picked that up. And but anyway, hopefully she said good. This is like
Good.
I say, this is the voter. And so again, I want to thank you for coming on, taking time out of your busy
Yeah.
schedule. I know
Thank you.
you have had some hectic schedule, you
Oh
know, uh,
yeah, we've had some.
putting boots on the ground, shaking hands, kissing babies,
Yeah.
doing those campaign political things. And so I know you've been very busy, and I want to thank you for coming on. And like I say, don't be a stranger.
Mhm.
Do please come back and visit us, visit me. What she say? She say she need a sign.
I ask
If-
all okay. Send me a
if
private message, and I'll make sure you get a sign. And I'd also like to say that we did a debate on that was live streamed on KLEK. So if you get on Facebook and search KLEK, you can see our live debate. It's just posted on their page. And
That's
let's
KLEK.
yes, sir, KLEK. It's a radio station out of Jonesboro, and they did a really good job of live streaming it. And all three of us were there. So I encourage everybody to go look at it and be informed voters.
Will do. Well, Attorney Sonia, it's been nice, and please do, as I indicated, reach out to me if there's anything I can do in terms of, helping you get a message out. You have my contact information, and just, give me a holler.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Okay, have a blessed day. Peace and
You
love.
too.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Mrs. Sonia Fonticiella. I always probably, I hope I pronounced it correctly. I know I didn't. But anyway, I thank her for coming by. Hopefully she said something today that, you know, remove any concerns that you might have had about who to cast your vote for in this particular race for the prosecutor attorney's job. And I want to go ahead and put this up on the screen. They had a debate, as she indicated, in the radio station in Jonesboro is who carried that. So I think she said what was it? KL. I know I wrote it down. KLEK, I believe. Okay, that's radio. Okay, let me just put radio there. RADIO. Okay. Now, I want to put this up here. Anyway, right up under my name, right there on the screen. KLEK Radio. For those of you who want to learn more, trying to differentiate between all the judges, all the attorneys that are running for the prosecutor uh, attorney's office. Okay, that's for the second judicial district. All right, and that is the radio station that you can view. I think they may have some type of archives to where you can go back and look. But KLEK Radio. So if you want to hear more about uh, Attorney Sonia in terms of who she is and uh, what her position is in running for the prosecutor attorney. So please do visit that debate. Okay. That was my special broadcast for today. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I know everyone is probably at work. Hopefully, for the few that have tuned in, please do share this video with your friends, your family, or what have you, because again, the prosecutor attorney's position, second judicial district, it is very important position. Uh, she will hold the position who our deputy prosecutors answer to. Okay, being Curtis Curtis Walker will sit up under her in terms of that's his superior who he answers to, as well as I think Oceola. I don't know if it's Dustin Jones or who down there on the south end of the county, and so she will oversee these deputy prosecutors. Okay, in terms of the hierarchy, they sits upon her. All right, so that is my show, special broadcast, and hopefully you all will pass the word. And if Mrs. Sonia said anything that uh, uh, won your vote, please do share that. Okay. So until then, I want to just go ahead and say to everyone, I'm going to close out, and please do come back and join me again, May 10th. 2022 will be my next topic. Don't really know the topic yet, but of course, I will give it to you when I decide. Okay, and please do share. All right. So again, I want to say to everyone, peace and love. God bless, and have a remaining wonderful